and down is this one. Thank you.
There we go. Thanks, Kevin.
Test. Have the microphone, gentlemen, and if you wouldn't mind to speak. Most of these are not my words, but words from a person you might know as a TV commentary, Tom Brokaw. And he's wrote a couple of different books, and I want to share some of his words about these gentlemen. When Pearl Harbor made it clear that America was not a fortress, this generation was summoned to the parade ground and told to train for war. They left their ranches, South Dakota, their jobs on the main streets of Georgia. They gave up their places on the assembly lines of Detroit and the ranks of Wall Street. They quit school and went cap and gown directly to the uniform. They faced great odds and a late start, but they did not protest. The time in their lives when their days and nights should have been filled with innocent adventure, love, and lessons of the workout world, they were fighting often hand in hand in primitive conditions throughout the world. They fought their way up through the South Pacific Islands. They fought their way out through France, Belgium, Italy, Austria. They were in the air and the skies filled with terror. They were in the sea and hostile waters. When they returned from the war, there were short-lived celebrations that immediately began the task of rebuilding their lives and the world that they wanted. They were mature beyond their years, tempered by what they had been through, disciplined by the military training and sacrifices. They married in record numbers, gave birth to a distinct generation, of which I'm one of them, the baby boomers. And they stayed true to the values of personal responsibility, duty, honor, and faith. And our annual Veterans Day, and this is our 10th anniversary of that, as Brokaw says, it gives us a very small way to pay tribute to those men and women who've given us the lives we have today. I've been very privileged to meet many of them over the years. As I started our World War II unit, I did say on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, the President said the following. He said, "We are the children of your sacrifice and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We are the sons and daughters you saved from tyranny's reach. And the most difficult days of your lives bought us many years of our freedom. There were 16 million men and women who served in uniform, 1/3 of the males aged 15 and older. They are the greatest generation. It's my honor to present these great men." Each of our distinguished speakers to speak about 5 or 6 minutes on what they would like to speak about to allow you opportunity to visit and ask questions. So feel free, you guys can take 6 or 7 minutes because we're a little ahead of schedule. And I think I do something a little different. I think I'd like to introduce you individually and then ask you to speak. That way I think that we'll have a better understanding. So I'll do that one at a time and then I'll speak and then go to the next, etc. Mr. Herman Harrington was with me 10 years ago. He is a veteran of this Veterans Day. And we missed him greatly last year. He could not make it. And we're very thrilled that he's back. Mr. Harrington was a member of the United States Army's 69th Infantry, which saw combat in Belgium and Germany, including what you all know was the December 44 battle known as the Battle of the Bulge. Mr. Harrington's 69th was the first troop to link up with Russian troops that began occupying Germany. Today, as an active member of the American Legion, Mr. Harrington has spent a great deal of time and energy to ensure, and I must say, successfully ensure, the building of the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. Something that shows you that dreams really can come true. He spoke about this 9 or 10 years ago, and today it's a reality.
of World War II. The World War II era was a really interesting one with very young people, not a great deal older than you. I was only 17 when I went in the military, and I was 21 when I came home. I found out that I had been voting for 4 years while I was overseas, and that speaks much of the democratic system we have in this country today, where you don't really have to be present or allowed to vote, but I did. That's a little exercise in sarcasm. I didn't mean it that way, but it's the way it came out. The World War II generation has been described in a lot of ways, but probably the most interesting one is the fact that we didn't look for a great deal when we came home. We were just excited in being home. Those of us that came home in one piece, and those of us that lived to come home. And we just wanted to get about finding a job, finding a good woman to marry. And I can say I was successful in both. I found a job that I kind of stuck with. And I found a woman that stuck with me for 55 years. So that says a lot about her. She's still a lady. So I'm very excited about the fact there's going to be a World War II memorial now. We weren't too interested in memorials, as I said when we first came home. There were other things on our mind, but I sort of re-emphasized Tom Hanks' remarks when he said dying for your country isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. Being forgotten is. So the World War II veterans and those people who fought and worked to support the World War II initiative are not being forgotten. I will be remembered with the memorial in Washington, D.C. My experiences in the military, you just kind of wink at me, Mr. Frank, and throw something at me when I receive my time. My experiences in World War II were not a great deal of heroic. I served in the United States Infantry, and that's not what you call a glamorous outfit. I went in, and to make matters even worse, I was a demolition man. So you don't make too many mistakes, and you don't hear a demolition man say, whoops, too often. My experiences were in Europe. I fought in Belgium and in Germany, in parts of France, and it was an interesting time, to say the least. We were the unit that made the first link up with the Russian troops at Torgau on the Elbe River, which is in northeastern Germany. That was an interesting time as well. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of bloodshed, and it sort of emphasized what Lee said, that war is hell. It truly is. And anything that we can do to successfully avoid war would be in our best interest. So, having said that, I'm at your mercy. Any questions you may want to ask, feel free to ask them.
I think we're going to hold questions till the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Ernest Hotaling.
Very good.
For some reason, not just skin years, was a member of the United States Army Airborne Engineers. Mr. Hotaling was part of the Airborne Engineers. It wasn't planes, it gliding. And his regiment had the important responsibility of setting up bridges and airstrips when the Allied forces marched through France toward Germany. Mr. Hotaling not only had experiences in the war, but brought home someone that became a very important part of his life. And I'll let him share that with you. Mr. President.
I started with the Airborne Engineers. You never hear much about
this, at that time, 16 years old, a redhead. Well, they say you guys will be going through love at first sight. That was it. So it took me over a year of paperwork before I could come back to England from Germany. At that time, I'm moving up. And all the time, I'm sending mail, and her father has to sign the paperwork because she's under 18 years old. Okay. So we did meet. Finally, I got from Germany over. And my wife still insists that I never asked her to marry her, right? She said, you told me you were going to marry me. Well, I still have to live with that. We will be married 59 years, comes September 3rd. So I did get my medal. And we have the 2 boys and family and so on. And I was one of the lucky ones to be able to come home. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stanley Sowek was a member of the 3rd Army under the command of General George Patton. Mr. Sowek was part of the force that broke through lines as the Allies marched toward Germany in late 1944. As you all know by now, being in the area in late 1944, Mr. Sowek also experienced intense fighting that became known as the Battle of Bulge. He was at the Czech border at the end of the war, knowing that it had already been promised to the Russians at the Yalta Conference. I hope you heard that before your test questions on Friday. Czech question. He was knowing that it had been promised to the Russians at the Yalta Conference. But most importantly, Mr. Sowek is John Matiznik's great uncle. Mr. Sowek.
I was a draftee. They shipped us down to Camp Bowie, Texas, bunch of recruits from New York State. And we got into the 602nd Tank Destroyer Battalion. Well, all the non-commissioned corporals and the sergeants and the officers were all from the second Infantry Division, the 38th Field Artillery Battery. They were all Texans and Oklahomans. Well, we had the Civil War going then. There was the rebels, they had the rank, and the rookies were the Yankees. Well, they had, we used to take a lot of crap from them, all right? The only way we could get at them, that San Antonio was the closest city, and the best we could do was call it San Antonio, because they hated that day. It had to be San Antonio. So then we shipped out to England, then we shipped out to, we landed on it with a Ellis steamboat in France, and we were under the command of Pat. And our motto was, we got into combat with seek, strike, and destroy. Well, we went seeking, and they found out they changed tactics, and we fought with the infantry. As, with them in the attacks, and once in a while we'd go on our own. We got into France. We had the breakthrough after St. Lo, and we crossed France. We went into Germany. Then the bullets started. And we were one of the first ones. We moved one night 100 miles north with the tanks. It was the first time that we ever had headlights on. They were desperate to get support up there. And we lost tanks on the way through the tracks because of the speed we were using. We set up, we were one of the first ones to be up there to put the fence between Lieberman-Bastogne Road to slow down some of the German on our road. And things were really, that was really hot. And the 101st was the airport was encircled there. And then we, 4th Armored Division came in with their, and they broke through. And we moved in with the 101st of the defenses. Then we overpowered the Germans, and we moved in. Then we moved in toward into Germany. Then, as you said there, we got toward the Czech border, and we stood there for a while because that territory was going to go. We didn't advance at all. That territory went to the Russians, the agreement at Yalta. But it was an experience that, well, it wasn't a happy one, but when you reminisce, I'm glad I done it. Thank you.
Cheeca was a member of the 106th Division of the United States Army. He was drafted at the age of 18. Cheeca entered the Army's specialized training program, only to find it terminated when the Army needed reinforcements. Before he knew it, Mr. Cheeca had been shipped off to England, and he entered Europe again in December of 1944, where again he found himself in action without a bullet. However, within 10 days of his action, Mr. Cheeca found himself a prisoner of war in Germany. He remained a prisoner right up to the end of the war until the 106th Cavalry liberated the camp. Most importantly, Mr. Cheeca is Chris Nelson's grandfather.
Chris Nelson's grandfather. Thank you all, Chris. Well, when I graduated in 1942, they took my whole graduation class in half. 2 days, the whole class was drafted. Now, we went all the way down. Everybody wanted to get in the airport in them days. So we're going down the coast, and we're going to Florida, Anyway, we went on the side and we went to Macon, Georgia. We opened, at that time you traveled with the curtain down there. They didn't want they had anything to see us traveling. I mean, it's stupid when you see all the shades down on the train, you know. We opened up the curtains and there's 4 airfields. We said, we're sighting, and I see an officer there with a cross rifle. I said, what's a cross rifle? He says, it's tough crap. They're in the infantry. Of all places I go. Well, anyway, I took infantry basic, and I was able, I had a previous diploma from the high school. So I was able to go into this specialized training that all the colleges had it, see. So I happened to be down in Auburn, Alabama for about 10, 11 months. Well, we're living nice, we're going to school, and we're pursuing our military activity too. All my group went and made the invasion. Well, I didn't realize how nice we had it until they called for troops again. So they folded everything. They folded all the Air Corps, all the specialized training. Anybody that wasn't a soldier, they put into the different divisions. Well, we went into this 106th division that just come off of maneuvers. Here we are with nice, clean, white clothes, and they come off of maneuvers. Everything is filthy. Oh, don't you think we didn't get harassed by that? You know what I mean? So we folded into the division there. They needed men. They were taking men all the while out of our division. Finally, they made it to our division up, and we went to England. We went to England for a month. We went into France, into the Ardennes forest. Now, the Ardennes was situated so that was all Germans. The Germans had all those emplacements there. They knew where we were. So we're here, we're all fresh troops. I had a barracks bag with everything. I even had a sewing kit. And this fellow that was leaving from the 2nd Division that we were relieving, he just had his coat, boots, his rifle, and a pack with nothing in it. I said, my God, how do you live that way, you know? Well, they were in the Army, and they had been there long enough to know how to live. We're just fresh troops. So I happened to be a machine gunner, so we put our machine gun in place and everything, and we had a limited amount of activity with our gun and everything. So pretty soon they told us, well, let's go, we gotta go somewhere. So we moved to somewhere else. At that time, it was 20 below zero. The Air Corps couldn't help us. And we were just stuck. So we milled around for a few days, and the next thing you know, our colonel gave us up. The colonel gave us up, and he never made general because he gave up. Well, he saved thousands of lives by doing that, you know. And we were signed up. We were led on a march for about a day. We would throw all these different towns and everything, and all the people would throw stuff at us and everything. And like we asked for water, they wouldn't give us no water or nothing. And if you were wounded or something, you were just by the side of the road. I don't know whatever happened to those guys. And we were signed up to the Red Cross. Then we were put on a train. Well, we were on the train, and it seemed as if the British or the American would bound one side, then we'd go back the other way. It seemed like we were bound the other side. We were locked in a prison in a boxcar for a week. Well, finally we got out, and we arrived at this one camp. That's where I stayed all the while. Usually, when you go to a camp, they assign you other places, but we happened to stay in this place here all the while, and the conditions were bad, and we had all sorts of bugs and lice and any bug that you want to have, we had. We didn't take a bath for 3.5 months for a shave. There were just no facilities. We were lucky to have bathroom facilities, whatever we had, which was very, very bad. But anyway, we managed to live that through. We were straight in the camp, and one thing you could appreciate, the amount of airplanes we had in the air that was bombing Germany. You could count airplanes from 8 o'clock in the morning I think the British had a radio, and we had new people coming in, they told us where they got captured and everything, so we kind of had an idea of when we would be getting free. So one morning, some outfit come down and roll the gates right down. Well, that was good. But you know, the only thing I'd like to tell you that kid, if you don't see that flag, you're in trouble. Respect your flag. Thank you.
Mr. Duane Merrill was a member of what actually was a secret organization. I haven't actually gone to the web to learn a little bit more about it. And a member of the Army Rangers. He was one of only 100 scattered across the front. Their job was to ensure the safety of General Patton and General Eisenhower as they led their troops on the march to Germany. In many ways, they were not just at the front, they were ahead of the front, scouting for intelligence to determine where and at what strength the Germans were. And being ahead of the front, they would also be the first Allied troops to enter the death camps of Dachau and Buchenwald. Most importantly, Mr. Merrill was referred to as Papa by Bart.
As Mr. Frank said, I was a Ranger, and our job was to go out and beat the enemy. Got to talk up here. I can talk louder. And determine their strength, reconnaissance, to make sure that the troops, when they were coming forward, were as safe as possible. You're not safe before. So, I'll tell you one interesting story. We always worked in the cover of darkness. We had compasses that go in the dark. We had topographic map, so we set a course, and we were told, the word came down from General Patton, that there was an Army force in this one town, and he wanted to know how big the force was, how much the resistance was. So, in the cover of darkness, we take off. Now, you're walking across strange land. You're not walking through town. You're not on a highway. You're walking through the woods. So, we were trained very heavily not to speak, not to talk, not to cough, not to make a sound. One of the men walked off the cliff. Another man walked off the cliff. We all walked off the cliff. We all landed on top of each other. And we're feeling each other. So anyway, we kept walking. We walked all night, stumbling, falling, whatever, and we came to this town that supposedly was this big German ritual. And we heard the chickens cackling, crowing, and whatever, and no enemy. So here's the road sign. We looked at the road sign, and somebody said, wrong town. Now, we're supposed to report back to Patton right now. This is morning. So we said, well, we better get through this town and find out if there's another town over there. So we walked through the town, no resistance, no enemy in any place, where they're supposed to be. Now it's getting kind of broad daylight. Somebody looked at the sign on the other side of the town. They said, oh, this is the right town. The language there, this is an Alsace-Lorraine. Now, when they named their towns, they spoke like they did in Wales. They threw the alphabet up, whatever came down, that was the name of the town. So it was hard for us to read. So we go back into the town, and here's about 25 German prisoners in a compound. And I said to the guard there, I said, where did you find these guys? We took them out of the basement of these houses. So we're actually sleeping with the enemy. So that's just a short story. War is hell, war is tough, but we were out there at the front all the time to try to make sure that everybody was as safe as possible. That was our job. So, thank you.
Without our next guest, it would have been a very unfair panel of speakers. Every year, based on the way it is in our makeup of our students, sometimes we have a lot in the Pacific Theater, and sometimes we have a lot in the European Theater. Well, Mr. Fay, if you were here, we'd have all European theater, so we're very honored you're here. Mr. Jack Fay joined the Navy 6 months after Pearl Harbor. Mr. Fay was a medic assigned with Navy rank. Mr. Fay saw action with the 2nd Marine Division that on April 1st, 1945, landed on the island of Okinawa as part of the Allied push to take back the island as they headed toward the possible invasion of Japan itself. Obviously, as you saw, the Battle of Okinawa would be one of the fiercest battles of the war. Mr. Fay, as part of the 2nd Marine Division, was also the first troops to arrive in Nagasaki after the second atomic bomb had destroyed the city. Most importantly, Mr. Fay is Liz's great uncle.
Saipan, second Marines, second Marines went aboard ship. I think it was going to Japan or someplace else. We were an initial invasion of Okinawa, Easter Sunday, April 1. And that was my first meeting of the kamikaze planes on the Iroquois side. My memory still is that 5 at that time. That Okinawa, back to Saipan, and then plane that took off. We were 10 minutes. I picked myself and Marine from Saratoga, because the Navy plane when I ran at Saipan. August the 6th was the first time that the atomic bomb, August 6th, at Hiroshima. We didn't know anything about the bomb. We didn't know the implications that would have in those days. 2 days later, the plane hit Nagasaki, which was not a description of what place was supposed to bomb. About 3 weeks later, before Labor Day, the whole entire Second Marine Division landed on the west side in the big bay of Nagasaki. We were the first troops in Nagasaki. And my 75th birthday, my Sunday before got Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I remember many places that we were on patrol with. And there, the war was over, August 15th. Still in Saipan at the time. And I remember the ship came in Nagasaki, Marines, much my age, many more years overseas. Some were in Guadalcanal, Southern Islands, got aboard the ship. A couple hours later, Captain Lieutenant came to me. That he had enough points to catch the ship at the Italy Island. And there, all the way from Nagasaki, California, hit the States that we maneuvered that day. Saturday morning, December 1, 45. 3 days in California, Fort Wayne, California. 5 days in the troop train, Brooklyn, Vito Beach. The whole Marine cutlery's souvenirs and no one sea bag that was set on the Saratoga, the Marine Corps. The Marines, I found out, lost a paper records of $1,800, $3,100 to this day. It took me 1 year to get my name. I had to know more than $100 to buy a Navy uniform on December 12, 45. I was fortunate enough. I still have good memory of certain things. So right now, I'm a little straight from my that's my history. Being in the Navy. I served in the Marine Corps.
Mr. John Edward was a member of the United States 8th Air Force. On his 24th mission in the bombing of Germany, Mr. Edwards was shot down and also became a prisoner of war. He was finally liberated by the 14th Armored Division under the command of General George Patton. Mr. Edwards would go on to serve in Korea and Vietnam. Today, Colonel Edwards is the president of the State Military Heritage Museum, extremely active individual in all the affairs that we've been talking about. The real honor to serve.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. You want to stand up for a moment, stretch out, you know? You can't, wait a minute, you want to stretch if you like.
great day is a sunny day, believe me. You know, last Saturday, May 8th, was VE Day, Victory in Europe, the war ended. And 4 days before, I was liberated. What a day. Let's go back to my history, just briefly. In the 30s, that's history, ancient history to some of you probably. But in those days, we didn't have TV. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. But we did have squeaky radios, I'll tell you that. In the 40s, that's when the world ended in the greatest war in history. Over on the Atlantic side was Germany and Italy as part of the Axis powers. On the Pacific side, it was the Japanese. And we were faced with the most modern military of those Axis powers at that time. We were waiting on it. But we did not let that bother us. Every went in, men, women, 16 million military. And many families members were supported by working in factories, farms, emergencies, and so forth that were created that continued. I was a teenager. Herman was over here. And where we had in the 40s rationing, gasoline rationing, holding food, everything was rationed. We couldn't travel. We didn't have sport activities because the buses were used to take us from our home to school and back. That was the extent of it. We didn't have the activity. But I had the dream. I tested my force. I wanted to get from one to the other. I wanted to fly. Folks said, you're a graduate of high school. You were going to get through high school. No, I want to get in. Everyone's going in. She kept up and said, you will finish high school. I did finish high school. But she said, another thing, before you go into service, you better learn to shave. I had a little fuss there. So I could talk to that little fuss that I had. He said, all right, we'll sign you up. I did go into service. I did get my basic training and so forth. Went through all the training required to be a member of the crew flying B-24s. We were crewed up at Chatterfield, Georgia, went on to England. In England, we started flying our missions over Europe. We're in the full 45th Bomb Group, 703rd Bomb Squadron. Why did I mention the Bomb Squadron? Because the commanding officer of the 703rd Bomb Squadron was the Jimmy Stewart. And he did fly the mission, tough missions. So although he was a movie actor, he did take tough missions. We flew some tough targets over to get into the strategic factories and so forth that we had involved. What was it like? You got early in the morning when you were, well, the night before you were ready, you're going to be flying a mission the next day. Early in the morning, go awaken. Where would you go? You'd go to the chapel quickly, go to the mess hall, you had your breakfast, try to find your crew chief because you asked your crew chief. How much of a bomber load? What was the gas capacity that was put into the bomber? Then you knew it was a long mission. You didn't fly from England directly to your target back. No, you had to circle around for a half hour or an hour to get in formation to fly over. You didn't fly it directly to the target. You had to go zigzag to get to the target. Why? Because there was no anti-aircraft batteries that we had to avoid. We got to the target and returned. On the 24th mission, and I'm going to move rather quickly because of time, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail. The 24th mission, ironic, B-24s were flying in. 24th, why not? We were shot down. We all bailed out, and it was a northern part of Germany. And you were alerted, be careful when you go out that you can possibly determine what altitude you are and so forth, because you had heated flying suits, you had oxygen mask, which is where because over 10,000 feet, it's not oxygen mask on. You get down after a heated suit at all times, it goes so cold. We, now to just make an example of myself, I checked and it looked like it was about 10,000 feet. And it was flying between 25 and 30,000. One of the first German jets came, knocked out of one, flat hit the other, was in the aircraft, and we had to bail out. Well, I judged the right distance, it was about 10,000 feet. I landed in a tree. This was winter time, and there was snow on the mountain. I finally got myself down. And I straightened myself out, started to walk, and get a little distance, and all of a sudden, oh! Whoa, that's the way I felt. You probably were wondering now how you feel about hearing that. I was scared. I was almost trembling. I was a little teenager. What to expect? I just turned 18. Another was a civilian, another came over, frisked me through, looked at my identification tags, we call them dog tags, and motioned to get up to the tree. I think they wanted to shoot because this was not on. I struggled to get down. Whereas we were leaving, two civilians, another civilian came up, aimed his pistol, rifle, or whatever he had, a pistol or a revolver, it was a small round, and hit me in the chest. But it grazed me, touching my lines, and probably reflected. Got into town, interrogation, brief interrogation in the old town, in the cell there. And then we got out on the square. Who, when I say we, my father, my dad, and myself, I was a taken on my way, basically getting mentioned. Something happened that never, oh, I forget my life. My pilot was shot to death in front of me. Right there. That made a big difference in my life. I'll never forget it. Well, then it was on to an interrogation center. There was interrogated by a German interrogation in Western Germany, and this was the location where the Germans interrogated all of the live flyers. What they asked. Questions that they felt was important for their intelligence gathering. What target you was flying? Why was what was it that you were trying to hit? And what ammunition, what's identification in your plane? So all this, and then they went through different techniques, which I don't want to bore you with. Once you get out of there, went into a boxcar, sent on to POW camp, and then months later to forced marches and so on. I went in the southern part of Germany, and there I was liberated by, as you mentioned, General Park, General Patton's Armored Division. But one interesting point that I just want to make, we're always hungry, we're always looking for food. On the forced march, it was a rainy day. We saw camped out in the night. It was a farm. We said, plus we get by the guards, we get to the farm, we see what we can get for some extra food. The food was most essential, especially in the forced march. We got through because the guards and the dogs wouldn't hear us. It was wet. We got by. Got into the farmhouse, grabbed what eggs we could get, so that's going to be a breakfast we can augment whatever we had. Well, you can't make fires at night because you could identify from above. British were flying look at any area that was lit up for possible intelligence information. Well, needless to say, we had these little smoky joes made up with our tin cans, so we would pour water stains, crank it up, and so on. I didn't go with detail, but we would back it. Looking forward to having eggs in the morning. Oh, just one fire brigade. But believe me, it made good soup. Oh, that's a tough one. Well, let me just say that I return family and so forth, and they career and all that. Let me just briefly say what we've had in the past. Our grateful nation recognized the POWs by awarding them a POW medal. There were articles written about POWs. POWs, they surrendered, they don't deserve the medal. You know, they quit, they didn't want to fight anymore. Yellow bellies and so forth. Well, let me just say, the American POW never surrendered. He was forcibly taken. We were flying in a crew, our crew would be like, could we take a 50 caliber machine gun and bring it down with us? Yeah. How about the sailors? If some ship is sunk down in a raft, would they take their deck guns with them and fight back? Of course not. What about on the ground? The ground forces, they're surrounded. They're out of ammunition. They captured. Yes, there were times when, especially in the Philippines, where the general forced the surrender. That was it was forced because it was senseless to go ahead and give up those troops to be killed, hurt, whatever. Now, this is a story of POW. What do I want to leave with you that I feel you should remember? And that is the 4 F's. And the 4 F's not necessarily in any particular order. The first F, faith. We pray. When I was so scared, I prayed. What's going to happen to me? Who else? I'm alone. You pray. And you pray. I'll give you a secret. I pray to this very day that I'm healed. That I have health. That I'm mentally right. So, never forget. Another is family. The other issue. What's happening to that? Will I ever hear from them? Will I ever be able to get back to you? Another one is food. The International Committee of the Red Cross will come through, and they're huge white trucks, Red Crosses. Yes, we'd be getting some food. But that was just an augmentation. Maybe we just wanted to get that food. In our POW camps, what are we talking about? Did we talk about a girlfriend or anything like that? Girls, I'm sorry. It wasn't about thinking about girls. It's food, what are we going to have for a first meal? That's all we thought about. And the 4th F, I guess you all can figure it out. Freedom. Until you have lost your freedom, you don't feel free. When we were liberated, and that flag was raised because we knew we were free. And the roar that came out from those POWs, I'm sure, echoed all the way back to America. We were free. We were free. And perhaps have our faults in this country. We have our problems, not let me tell you, it's the best form of government in this world. I've been all over it. And believe me, defend that flag. Defend that flag. It's the greatest flag in the world. It means a lot. And you hear today, finally, what's going on, what's happening in Iraq and how we're creating POWs. That's not America. We have signed an agreement that this country will abide by the Geneva Conventions where we have POWs. And most of the countries in the world have signed on. The Geneva Conventions. I don't know if we have it. I think it's sometimes worthwhile. The Geneva Convention, 1949, it established the guidelines for protection of POWs. And as a democratic you all. Thank you.
I think we now have some time for some questions, and if you'd like to, you can feel free to ask any of our panel members or the panel in general any questions you may have. Could I ask that if you have a question that you please stand up and please speak very loud. I bragged about you guys. You had a whole test on World War II on Friday. So I hope it's a little less impressive.
Where did you get the Nazi
The question, where did you get
You gotta, I'll tell you what, this old goat is hard to hear, so yell at me, please.
He
Go
asked,
ahead again.
he asked you where you got the Nazi helmet.
This ain't a, what do we say, combat helmet. Because this shows up out in the field. And you make a good target. So, to tell you the truth, I was in the tanks, and I had a lot of them. We used to help ourselves eventually a number of times. And it's during one of the times that we went to, we took a town, German town, and this was on display, and I took it. It's just like other things. Like here I got a pass that was dropped by, he could have dropped it maybe, the B-24s, or the P-17s. It's like safe conduct paper. They dropped the German soldiers so they could show it to the American troops that they want to surrender. And, well, it's only a chance. It's same as this. You capture a soldier. He was shooting at you. So he's got some medals on him. You help yourself. There's no, there's not, how would I say, there's no etiquette or camaraderie there. So, a lot of it's help yourself. You don't touch him. We never touched anybody. We never bothered anybody. But that's the way it went.
Other questions, please? Right? Stand up. Stand up.
Do you see any of the Jersey concentration camps?
Yes, we liberated one German. It was a nomination concentration camp and death camp. And so we're making the war at a unique thing about it that I still remember is that their forearm was like a character, a top fighter forearm was bigger than the bicep from not having a cape quite a while. And there were
crematorium was stacked with bodies you don't recognize because it's just like a corpse. And they couldn't cremate them fast enough. Outside of the prison camp was a train. They brought in a lot of these people, and they were going to bring them into the camp. They heard we were coming. They knew we were coming. So they opened up the boxcar doors, set up machine guns, and killed them. They were there when we were. They were just killed. Not a pretty sight. There was farms where they treated the people like they were worse than animals. They had shelters against the barn where they heard them at night. They slept on the ground in straw, working with the rest of the people. The barn were full of caskets, if you will, with boxes for their bodies in them. The boxes were wide open. They didn't expect anything to eat. Pretty well.
They come and ask all the Jewish soldiers to put them in a separate place. Now, a lot of the fellows didn't know whether they to claim they were Jewish or not, because you know, you can't hardly tell them the name, but they had them on the door tag, you know. So most of these people, they get up and they separated in another part of the camp. Well, we said, you can't do that to the American soldiers, so you can't. They just did. They got a hold of these guys and they put them into they worked the mines. They really worked the hell out of these guys. They put a few extra people and they said they were troublemakers. Just not to make them look so bad that they've taken all Jewish people. They put them in there, they worked in the mines and they worked them to death. Now, as far as I know, that particular group is claimed against the a person that was in the death chambers. They could put a claim against the government for that because they really gave the guys the business. They come out bad. So you think because you're an American soldier, that means something. Doesn't mean much at all. Depends who's got you.
I know that some of the students would like to come up and visit with things, and so we have a little thing we'd like to do for you. We'd like to see you a song in your honor. So I asked the students to please incredible thing that you brought with you. So in a very quiet and orderly way, feel free now to come up and speak to everybody. Again, thank you very much.
Mostly counted as in position as well. And so this is an Iroquois demonstration. One thing I'd like to ask the students that are here, I understand that each year this class tries Harry Truman for dropping the atom bomb on Japan. And I was wondering, I assume you have yet to try it.
We haven't done it.
And I just want to wish Harry Truman lots of luck.
Thank you very much. Please.